Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet Radio show on Metal Messiah Radio. Today, as our guest, we have with us Peter Ellis of the British heavy metal band Monument. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
So, Peter, tell us a little bit about yourself now. Have you lived in the UK most of your life?
Well, I was born and raised in Athens, Greece, and I moved to London as a teenager. So I've been here for about 15 years now.
Okay, well, you don't sound like you're from Athens, Greece anymore, Peter. So what kind of music then, Peter, did you listen to growing up, and what bands were your influence in starting Monument?
Right, so I know you're going to find this shocking, but Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, of course, Rainbow, Thin Lizzy, that type of sound. And the band started in 2011. So, Peter, give people a little history behind the band. Right, so basically, well, when I first moved to England, my first real band was a band called The More I See. Now, this is the band of Giz Butt, who's the former guitar player for The Prodigy. So I did a couple of albums with these guys. We played Download Festival in, I believe it was 2010, I think. And that was the same year that White Wizard were playing the second main stage. So I was, let's say, discovered, I suppose, at that show. And about a week after the show, I got an email from White Wizard saying if I wanted to go to LA to audition. So I went out there, I did my audition, I got the gig, ended up staying in LA for a bit. And then eventually, the year after, when I left White Wizard, I came back to London and I decided to start Monument. So that's basically the beginning of the band. That's how everything came together.
And now you guys are just about to release your third album, full length. So, Peter, over the years, how would you say the band has progressed as to what you are now?
Well, the thing is that the first few years, as I'm sure you know, it's with bands is just, it's all about finding the right lineup to begin with. So the first few years, it was just basically changing band members all the time, you know, until we were able to establish the actual proper first lineup. It was, you know, we did an EP, but it was very DIY. We were a do-it-yourself type band. We didn't have anyone behind us, just working class guys. You know, we just really believed in what we were doing. So we did the first album, again self-financed, and that was basically when we were touring that album, when I first started talking to our current manager, who's also the owner of our label. And we formed a partnership, and since then, obviously, we were able to do things at a bigger level and just keep building and building. And now with this third album, we have an entire team of people that are able to help us do this at the level that we've always wanted to do, and spread our message, so to speak, as wide, you know, and far as we can. So that's basically the story and how we ended up to today.
And today we're here to talk about your new album, Hellhound, out May 25th on Rock of Angels Records. So, Peter, how did you approach this album musically?
Right, so, well, the thing with us is, what we usually do is just basically, we just want to record the best songs that we can come up with, you know. And it was no different with this one. I mean, obviously, I knew that it's the third one. You know, it's the third album has to be the one. You know, has to be something special. So there was a bit of pressure to deliver, but at the same time, you can't really think of that whilst you're putting the material together. You know, you just have to do your best and just record the best songs you can, and that's it, you know, and see if people like it. So thankfully, people seem to like it so far. So I think we came up with something really special with this album, and I think we finally have managed to capture the live sound of the band on a record for the first time, which is really exciting.
And what about lyrically, Peter? What are some of like the lyrical themes of this album, and where do you kind of draw your inspiration for lyrics?
Well, London is actually one of my main sort of inspirations, I suppose, when it comes to lyrics, like urban London life, things that I you know, that I witness on a daily basis, you know, and that I'm around. That's something I tend to write a lot about. History and historical figures is something that I'm really into. So I tend to write a lot of songs like that. Relationships, you know, just basically, I don't want this to be a band that we just write about one thing, you know, and it's just a gimmick, and that's the only thing we do, whether it's the occult or whatever it is. I think people are a bit tired of this, you know, and it just puts you in a box. I don't want to be in a box, you know. I just want people to just play an album and have different aspects of their lives being represented in each song. So that's really important to me, to just mix it up a little bit, you know.
So Peter, tell us a little bit about, you know, who produced it, where you recorded it. I mean, was this something you did locally?
Locally, because we're based in Essex. So we did it with Tony Newton, who's obviously the producer for Iron Maiden, and he did the latest live album for Maiden, and he's been doing the live stuff for like 20 years now. I've been friends with Tony for about 12 years. We used to play together. We did covers in Camden and all that, you know, at the very, very early days of my career. So Tony has witnessed it all, you know, has witnessed pretty much every single band I've been in, you know, the very beginnings, doing covers and all that. So, well, now that we've entered the next phase of the band, and we do have a budget and we have backing and we can do things properly, I basically picked up the phone and said, you know, Tony, do you want to do the new album? And he gladly accepted, and I'm thankful that he did, because he just understands the DNA of the band, you know, because we have a lot of similarities with Maiden. So it's like Tony and I speak Maiden, if that makes sense.
It does.
You know, so he immediately gets the sound that I'm after, but also he realizes that I'm not looking to just recreate the Maiden sound. That's not the point. It's create a authentic British heavy metal sound that belongs in 2018. That was the goal, and he absolutely delivered. And the fact that he was able to capture each member's performance, I mean, that was amazing. Like, he introduced things like mixing for the track, which you'd think that is, yeah, of course, it's simple. It's not, because most modern producers, they just go like, you know, preset number 4, click, for the entire album.
And no, go ahead.
So yeah, Tony's really old school, you know, and that's basically the approach that suits Monument. And to me, it's the first real, it's the first album that I can hear my band members, you know, on the record, if that makes sense. Like, I can actually hear each guy playing instead of just hearing the producer. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about Tony. He's amazing.
And now, a lot of the bands include like a bonus track on the album. You guys have 3 bonus tracks on the album. So why 3, Peter?
Well, the thing is, it's 2 covers. It's a Rainbow cover and a Maiden cover. which of course, Creatures of the Night. It was originally meant to be on the album, but listening back to it, if you listen to the album with it and without it, it's just two completely different albums.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided that it makes more sense to just have it as a bonus track instead, because it just changed the vibe of the album too much if we included it.
And like you said, you did do a Maiden cover, and also, Rainbow's Long Live Rock and Roll. That I thought was so awesome now. I really enjoyed that because it just reminded me, it immediately brought me back to my youth when that song came out in the first place. Whether you were born or not, Peter, I don't freaking know, but it was a long time ago. And you just, like you were saying about this album, it's like heavy metal, but how you would listen to it in 2018, So, and Peter, what do you want the listener to experience when listening to this album? What would you wish for them to experience?
Well, I want them to basically feel like they are right next to the band in the rehearsal room whilst we're playing live together. And that was my direction, when I spoke to Tony about the type of vibe that I want. I want them to hear the band and be inspired by real people playing real music. That was the feeling that I wanted to get across with this album, and I really think we've achieved that.
And it's like you had mentioned earlier, when you produced this album, you can hear now like the individual members, which gives the listener that feeling that you just described, like you're in the room and you could hear each one of these individual parts but together as a band. So I think you achieved it. So Peter, tell us a little bit now about the cover art and the artist.
Right, okay, yes. So I'm quite proud of this cover, I must say. It's my concept, as it's usually the case with our artwork, and the artist that puts everything together is Stan Decker. Stan is one of in my opinion, he's the modern day Derek Kriegs. I mean, he's unbelievable. He's done Richie Blackmore's stuff. He's done everyone, really. He's just he's in high demand. So well, first of all, it's the first time they'll have Jack with 3 heads, which is quite different. Well, because it's the third album, you see. I really like doing little things like that with each album. So, for example, Hair of the Dog was the second album. So that's why it was called Hair of the Dog. So it's like Renegades was the big night out. Hair of the Dog is the night after, where you do it all over again. So that's why I named it Hair of the Dog. And now with this third one, I was just thinking like, I knew that I wanted Jack to be a giant on this one. That I knew. And I knew that I wanted him to just be in an apocalyptic London. I knew that. And the reason is to just reflect basically everything that's going on in the UK at the moment, which feels like the apocalypse is about to happen any time now. It's a pretty tense time to be in the UK. So I wanted to reflect that. But the reason why I gave him 3 heads is because, well, it's the third album. So, and he's a dog. And I was like, ooh, Cerberus, job done,
Oh, it all kind of ties in together.
Precisely. So that's why it has 3 heads. And that's what I said earlier is the reason why there's an apocalyptic London scene, basically, as the cover.
And like I was telling you before, I really enjoyed listening to this, as it kind of really brings me back to the music of my youth, like the old Maiden and Zeppelin and Rainbow, and like, what do you think the future holds for heavy metal bands in a scene like this that is so awash with like death metal and extreme metal?
Well, I think, clearly I believe in what I'm doing, with Monument, and I do believe that there's a place for a band like this coming out of the UK. my goal is to. It sounds so cheesy and cliche, but my goal is really to bring back true British heavy metal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that truly is our goal as a band. I feel that most bands are really overwhelmed by how good Iron Maiden were, and they just don't go there anymore.
That could be it.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they're just like, we're never going to do it as good. Well, it's like, mate, just try. You know, if you really think you've got it, you know, and you have something to say, just go for it, you know. But that's a deeper issue with fear of failure and all that stuff, you know, which thankfully I've never had. I'm like, if I fail, I failed. So what, you know? So that's my goal. My goal is to bring back British heavy metal, because what's going to happen when Maiden stop doing it? You know, when Priest retire, what's going to happen? Like, we're going to lose the sound that started it all. And to me, is absolute perfection. Like, the new wave of British heavy metal sound is perfection. If you add stuff to it, it becomes less than, and if you take stuff out, it just loses something. It's the absolute perfect blend of melody and heaviness, you know. Also, you know, in terms of branding, have a mascot, you know, have something that people identify with. It's escapism, you know. I want people to get the vinyl version and just look at the vinyl and just lose themselves, you know, and just go into that world and experience the music like the way that it was meant to be experienced. That's my goal.
And now, Peter, are you guys going to be doing some touring this year?
Yes, we're doing several festivals with Maiden this summer. We're doing some with Judas Priest as headliners. We're opening the main stage of the Bloodstock Festival over here, which is really, it's a proud moment, you know, for us, obviously, to be able to do that here in the UK. And after the summer, we're just looking to go out on the road, supporting some more established acts, and then eventually start doing some headline tours of Europe.
Now, Peter, is this the first time you guys are going to be playing shows with bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest?
It is. We've supported bands like, for example, Iced Earth and Sanctuary. We've supported Dear Disciples, that level bands. But yeah, this is the first time that we're going on the road playing main stages at basically pretty much almost all of the big European festivals with bands like Maiden and Priest. Yeah.
So it's got to be kind of fun for you then. Here you are going to play the same festivals as your idols, and you don't even have to buy a ticket, Peter.
Oh, absolutely. It's brilliant. I'm more excited about watching Maiden like 2-3 times this summer than performing.
No, Peter, what are some of the best sites for people to learn more about the band and keep in touch with where you're going to be playing and all that?
Well, the best place is really our Facebook page. So it's Monument UK. You can easily find it on Facebook. And obviously we have a Twitter page, Instagram and all that. So social media is the place for people to visit and keep up to date with what we're up to.
All right, well, there you have it. Monument has a new album called Hellhound out May 25th. And Peter, thank you for coming on the show to tell us about the band and new album and all the best with the new album and out there on the road.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me.
Oh, that